So it seems that the Acolyte has really started a civil war among Star Wars fans. And now that the full show is done, all 8 episodes are out, I wanted to talk about it one more time. Also, in a response to a previous video that I did, where I essentially was like, can we stop being dicks and stop hating on the Acolyte and hating on Star Wars in general? And unfortunately, that video got a bit of a different response than I was hoping for, but I kind of expected it anyway. So, there's that. But in this video, what I want to do is actually respond to the comments that I got on that video and also do a bit more of a deep dive into the history of the Star Wars fandom and specifically the moments that really stand out in terms of when the Star Wars fandom got a lot of hate. Because I honestly don't understand why so much hate towards a franchise that I personally have loved for like 20 years now. Like, I don't understand why that's necessary at all. So sit back, relax, please comment after I'm done talking, not during, because with my previous video, there were people who just wanted to comment before I was even done talking. And then I'm like, go to this point in my video and you will find something that I have to say about that. So yeah, please hear me out and then comment at the end of all of it, because I will address a lot of things in this video. I do want to ask, first of all, to the people who really hate Star Wars at this moment, what does it contribute if you say, this sucks, this is garbage? Like, what do you want to accomplish with that? Instead of, being more nuanced, being more critical, like having actual criticisms, a lot of people just say, like, this sucks. And I don't think that really contributes to anything. I would like to hear why you think it sucks and what you want to accomplish with it. And like, why do people even send death threats? Because this has still been happening with the Acolyte, and I cannot wrap my head around it. Like 3PO said,
sometimes I just don't understand human behavior.
Like, the toxicity is just going on and on and on, and I don't think it's good for the franchise, honestly. Like, or at least for the fandom, for the enjoyment of Star Wars, honestly. The franchise will live on. Believe me, the franchise is healthy enough, like it's doing well, that, a whole bunch of hate comments will not affect that too much. But for my personal enjoyment, it is. And that's what I think sucks about it. Like, if I want to enjoy Star Wars, I want to enjoy that with people. And if I see 10 million people say, this is garbage, this sucks, without any other explanation, that is not really helping anyone, I think. So first of all, I just want to dive into the history of Star Wars, like where we've seen these things before, because we have seen these things before.
And it's important to remember this, that this is a pattern that repeats itself throughout history.
And hopefully at the end of it, I can come to some kind of resolution, but I still probably will be like, why do we hate on something we love so much? So I want to quickly explain something about myself, like how long I've been a fan, because I've been a fan for like 20 years by this point. I kind of grew up during the time that the prequels were coming out, and I have loved Star Wars ever since. And ever since I watched my first movie, and then I watched all the other movies back in the day. And at the time, we had the original 6 movies, the original trilogy and the prequels, which as a kid, I really enjoyed. As I grew older, not as much a fan of the prequels anymore as I used to be. I still watch them from time to time, and I still quite like Revenge of the Sith. I think Phantom Menace is quite watchable. On the other hand, Attack of the Clones is definitely my least favorite of all the Star Wars movies, and that's a movie that I don't really look forward to rewatching. But, instead of what some people did, I just choose to not watch it as much. But anyway, so I watched the movies. I also really got into the games at the time. A lot of great games came out early 2000s, like Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars Battlefront 2, Empire at War. I played a lot of them. And like with some of the games, I also got into, the Legends lore. So I read up on some stuff. I didn't exactly read the books, but I did read about, who is Grand Admiral Thrawn, because he appeared in one of the games. And I'm like, who is this guy? So I wanted to know a bit about him. Then I eventually did read the original Thrawn trilogy. And I also dipped my toe into, reading something about the Darth Bane trilogy, the Reverend books, all that kind of stuff. So I have been like not just a fan of the movies. I also was into the like books, games, of course the TV shows, because the Clone Wars was coming out at some point, and I watched all of the Clone Wars. So I've been a fan for a very long time. I have a lot of merchandise. I mean, you can see it on the shelf right here, and I have a lot more elsewhere in my apartment. So I think, I have a bit of an idea of what Star Wars is and how Star Wars has been over the past couple of years. However, at one point, I learned what people thought about the prequels and how critical people were of the prequels, and also how much hate the prequels actually got. And I was like, what the hell is wrong with people, honestly? Because we got to the point where Ahmed Best made like a video telling people how much he actually was thinking about killing himself, walking to a bridge every day, looking over the edge, thinking like, hey, maybe I should just jump. Like, what the hell? That people drove him to that point simply because he portrayed a character that, well, some people don't like. I actually don't mind Jar Jar all that much in the Phantom Menace. I mean, he's not one of my favorite characters, but he is also nowhere near my most hated character. But apparently Ahmed Best was driven to that point, which is just insane to me. And I mean, I think we all know what happened to Jake Lloyd. And again, with Jake Lloyd, I don't think that he did a particularly bad job as Anakin in that movie. Like, he was a 9-year-old kid. What the hell else was he supposed to do? He acts like a 9-year-old kid, as far as I'm concerned. And if anything, I think that the person who is to blame for any faults of the prequels is George Lucas, because the writing and directing is pretty shit at times. But I am not going after George Lucas myself either. Like, I am glad that, the franchise is not with him anymore and with someone else, because at the time that he sold it, he was not doing too great for the franchise, and the franchise needed to be sold and needed to be handed over to other people, to the point, where now a whole lot of people are in charge. Like, we have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, sometimes too many. I mean, I'm not saying that ever since the Disney buyout, it's been all good, but I have liked a lot of it, honestly. So that's my take on that. But that was another point, the moment that Disney bought the franchise from George Lucas. Like, when Disney bought it, a lot of people were like, oh my God, why the hell Disney? Well, to be fair, Disney is just a studio like Warner Brothers or Sony or whatever. But no, Disney was the studio that was able to offer the most money. And, well, I personally think that ever since it's been good. But already at the time that Disney bought it, people were completely against it. I actually don't think that people were necessarily sad that George Lucas had to leave the franchise, because let's be fair, George Lucas had been blamed for destroying the franchise for a very long time. And George Lucas himself said, well, people blame me for all this stuff that Star Wars has done over the past couple of years. So in that regard, I don't really feel like being with this franchise if every fan is just going to hate me for it. And now, years later, there are a bunch of people who are like, oh no, come back, George Lucas, we need you again.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
So, very hypocritical, let's be fair. But I think that more people were upset about the fact that the franchise was sold to someone else, because quickly after, the entire Legends slate was dropped as ever really existing as a form of canon. To be fair, it wasn't canon in the first place. Some people don't accept that. Some people were like, no, it was canon. No, it never was. But there are people who are not going to be swayed by me saying anything right now. I think that a lot of people are still going to be like, it was canon. It was my canon. I grew up with it. Look, I get it. I also grew up with some of the games, and I still think that Knights of the Old Republic should be canon. But I have faith in Disney, in the studio right now, that at some point they will make Knights of the Old Republic into a form of canon. But it will probably take some time, because one of the biggest things about Knights of the Old Republic is that, you could create any character as the main character. And it needs to be one set character when we finally have a version of Revan. So that's why they haven't done anything with that yet. Also, because Legends has existed ever since the first movie came out. So since 1977, until 2012. It's 35 years of content. They're not just going to be able to reintegrate 35 years of content into new canon.
Don't care how I want it now.
They need to take some time to reintegrate that in canon so that it works. Because let's be fair, Legends was a mess, a really big mess. A lot of shit contradicted itself. Chewbacca being killed by a moon. I didn't actually read the thing, but it sounds kind of stupid to me, in all honesty. And there were a lot of things that they needed to make into canon. And I personally think, having read a bunch of the books, actually, that they are doing a pretty good job with it. That's my opinion. I know it's controversial, but I think what they're doing is pretty good, because I also like that they're essentially cherry picking from Legends. Like, they do want to integrate characters and stories from Legends, but they have to integrate it in a way that it fits with a certain canon. I will say, though, that canon by this point has sometimes been very flexible, like certain things happening in the books and then not lining up with stuff that we see in like TV shows or games, where we're like, how does this work? To the point where I'm just like, it doesn't exactly line up, but whatever. At least it's still more consistent than Legends so far. This might get worse, but we'll see about that. I'm still on board, and that's just it. I have been on board with Disney ever since they started to release stuff in terms of movies and TV shows. Because initially, when Disney had bought Star Wars, I was like, okay, we'll see how this goes. To be fair, Star Wars has not been perfect for the past couple of years, and we'll see what happens. And then we got The Force Awakens in 2015, and I was very happy with it. And a lot of other people were also happy with it. Not everyone, but most people. So that was a good step in the right direction, I feel. And then I also watched Star Wars Rebels, which I really love. So that was a good show. So I was thinking, okay, Star Wars is on the up now. Then we had Rogue One. I think most people like that. But then we got to another very, very controversial point in Star Wars history. 2017, The Last Jedi. Because The Last Jedi also kind of seemed to split the fandom. Some people absolutely loved it, claim it to be the best Star Wars movie or one of the best Star Wars movies. And on the other hand, you have people who say that it's one of the worst or the worst Star Wars movie, and they absolutely hated it. And it's honestly fascinating to see that it's the exact same movie and people are completely split in their opinion. The funny thing is, when I came out of the movie, I really enjoyed it myself. I am one of the people who really loves it. But I instantly said, I can see why people have an issue with this, why people don't like this movie. There were plenty of things that I could point to, like, yeah, that's controversial. But for me, most of it worked. Other people, not so much. And I was okay with that. That's fine. If you disagree on a movie, if you disagree with anything with me, fine. We can talk about it. We can have a discussion. But, of course, the fans being as stupid and as toxic as they are, they instead decided to, attack cast members and the director, mostly. I do want to say Rian Johnson handled it like a champ. The way that he was responding to people, that he was actually encouraging people, oh, you want to make a remake of The Last Jedi? Yeah, by all means, go ahead, make it. Because he kind of knew that probably would never happen. And have we seen a remake since? I don't think we have. Is anyone still working on that? Please let me know if anyone is working on a remake of The Last Jedi. I don't think anyone is, let's be fair. But what was really upsetting to me, and I think upsetting to a lot of people, and just straight up wrong, is that Kelly Marie Tran deleted her social media. Like, simply because she plays a character that is not entirely loved in a certain movie, she gets so much hate towards her that she just decides to delete her social media. That's just wrong, because honestly, I would love to hear from, cast members online on social media to hear what they have to say about certain things. But, so like Kelly Marie Tran deleted social media. I think Daisy Ridley as well. And I think a lot of people did, simply because they got so much hate. And I'm just like, what's wrong with people? Why do you have to attack a person?
It's like we don't learn anything.
Again, like, I don't understand that we need to hate on something so much that it drives people to do this. That's just absolute insanity to me. Look, I do want to make it very clear. If you don't like something, if you really don't like something, that's fine. You can criticize it all you want, but don't go attacking people. That is wrong. But then, since The Last Jedi, a couple of years passed, we got a lot more, mostly TV shows, but specifically with The Acolyte, people decided to really hate on it, and they already started to hate on it before the show came out. And I think that this is probably the worst it's ever been in terms of the history of Star Wars fandom. This is some of the most toxic stuff that I've seen for the show, for anything, honestly. And I truly don't know why. Like, I have the feeling that maybe I'm missing something with it, Like, I am just watching these shows when they come out, and I judge it on what I see in the show. Whatever came before, I don't really follow that. I think that something happened. Also, based on some of the comments that I've seen on my video, I do think there was something happening, but I kind of missed all of that. And I am judging The Acolyte by what I see on screen in the show. And based on what I've seen in the show, I liked it. It's not my favorite of the shows, and I think there are a couple of issues, and I do, now after also reading the comments, see at least other people's point of views, but I still think that the blind hatred that the show had gathered before it even came out is very unwarranted, at least in my opinion. Like, I got a comment on my trailer reaction. Like, when the initial trailer dropped several months ago for The Acolyte, I did a reaction, and I was like, okay, looks all right. I'm curious to see what it is. And then someone commented, like, aren't we supposed to boycott this? And I'm just like, why? What is the show doing before it even comes out for us to boycott it? Like, I don't think that the trailer looked that terrible, honestly, but apparently there is more going on that I didn't receive the memo of, like, oh, we need to hate this before it comes out because something happened. What happened? What changed in the equation? I don't understand this. Like, we didn't hate any of the other shows before, even though, I really didn't like the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. And that was a show that I was like, yeah, no, this sucks and I don't care for it. If you like Obi-Wan, fine, no problem. The show was just not for me. Am I going online saying to everyone it sucks? No. I spent like 5 to 10 minutes typing out a review on Letterboxd for it, and then I was done, and then I moved on to better things, like, watch Andor again, because I love Andor. And that is honestly how I view anything that I dislike, If there's something that I am watching, especially in the case of Star Wars, and I don't like it, then I'm like, okay, I watched it, I didn't like it, I probably won't rewatch it again. I'm probably going to rewatch something that I do like an Andor or something. Like, instead of spending hours and hours on the internet telling every single person in existence that you hate this show, and like typing, it's garbage, this sucks, instead of doing that, you can just put on an episode or a movie that you do like and enjoy that, or do something else with your life, because that insane amount of spouting out hatred that people do, I will never understand that in my life. So anyone who's watching this who does that kind of stuff, explain to me why you do it, why you feel like that betters the world. Because honestly, I don't think that spouting that amount of hate betters anyone. Let's be fair. And a couple of specific things with The Acolyte coming out really irked me this time around, because the thing is that Wikipedia is a site that I use all the time. It is very helpful in terms of knowing anything about the Star Wars universe because it has all the information. So I go on it all the time to look up certain things, but at times I see certain things that are wrong, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to edit this page because I made an account and I can actually edit the pages so that, it lines up with what is correct. So in the case of the character of Ki-Adi-Mundi, who appeared in episode 2 of The Acolyte, we saw Ki-Adi-Mundi way before we saw him in the prequels in this show, and certain people, like myself, were a bit confused, like, has that always been the case? No, it hasn't. That's something that this show decided to do, And that's something that this show changed in terms of what we know about the character. But to be fair, we didn't know anything about the character's history up until this show. Because in terms of canon, this is the first time we see him. Legends is a different story. I'm not going to go into that. But in terms of canon, this is what we know now. Like, he was already around by the time of the Acolyte, 100 years before the prequel. So, based on that, then, of course, the Wikipedia entry needs to be edited. However, instead of, just tweeting out to the Wikipedia Twitter team, who are just a couple of people who run it because they like to, who aren't paid to do it, instead of, tweeting to them like, hey, Kiari Mundi's page is now wrong because of the latest episode of The Acolyte, should you change it? Or you can change it yourself if you have editing access, something like that. No. People decided to send death threats to the Wikipedia team. Are you fucking kidding me? Honest to God, I will never understand why people do that type of stuff. Another example of what I encountered, I usually watch Star Wars Explained's live streams after, a new episode of a show drops. So on the stream, you will have Alex and Molly, who are some of the nicest people online. Very chill, very knowledgeable about Star Wars, and they are essentially accepting of any kind of opinion. They're very nice, and they will just reach out to you, be nice to you, whatever you say. But then at one point, Molly mentions that she tweeted something, and she got so much hate for it. So many people started to hate, and she was legit upset by that. And they talked for it a little bit that, it's honestly just insane that people are hating so much simply because someone likes something. Like, as I said, Molly and Alex are some of the nicest people that I know in terms of Star Wars. And there are people who feel like they need to hate on them. And that's just absolute bullshit, in my opinion. Like, there are some good people out there who don't deserve any hate. And I do think there are some of them, because what they do in terms of the Star Wars community online on YouTube is great, and it brings a lot of people together, and they give a lot of good knowledge, good insights to certain things about Star Wars. And I can just not understand how people hate on that. Like, what the hell is wrong with you, honestly? And look, I know that most of the people who really do that type of stuff that hate are just a minority, but they're still extremely loud. And unfortunately, if you have a loud minority, it seems like a majority at times. And it still fucking sucks, honestly. Also, what really surprised me is that Red Letter Media also watched and reviewed The Acolyte twice, actually. Once was during the show, after 4 episodes, and once was after the show was done. And this is what they had to say.
I guess I'm kind of in line with Rich, where I thought it was incredibly mediocre. Not worth getting angry about, but not really a whole lot to praise.
So if the review channel with the famous Plinkett prequel reviews said this about The Acolyte, then how in the hell do we think that a show like The Acolyte warrants so much hate even before it already dropped? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Because I truly believe that most of the people who are hating The Acolyte already decided to hate it before it even came out because of whatever the hell happened. I don't know what happened. Explain that to me in the comments. So when the show then came out, they watched it. Then they probably waited for people online to complain about it because of whatever. And then they were like, oh, yeah, that's what we can complain about. Because still, I do believe that most of the complaints are not really complaints. I will get into that more when I go into my comments, but I still don't see why a show like The Acolyte deserves this much hate. I personally think there are other shows that deserve more hate, if anything, but in general, I don't think anything really deserves any hate. If you don't like something, fine. The same as what I was saying about Obi-Wan Kenobi. I didn't like the show. I wrote a review about it. I moved on. Why does anything deserve hate in the first place? Explain this to me, because I still cannot figure it out. And I will say that years ago, when I initially was doing this channel, I had a very different approach to how I view content, movies, TV shows like I do now. I'm still extremely passionate. Believe me, I'm very passionate about Star Wars. I really love to talk about it. I really love to review it, especially if I really like whatever the new content has showed us. But I will say that whenever I see people hate on it so much, and also in my comment section, I get a little disheartened by it. I get sad by it because I'm just like, oh, well, are we able to discuss something in a nice way? And ever since I relaunched my channel, I have been trying to be as positive as it possibly can be. Sure, there are plenty of things that I am critical about, and I will always say that in my videos. If I'm critical about something, if I don't like something, I will explain exactly why I don't. But I always end my video saying, like, let me know your thoughts. But I do now want to essentially change that to let me know your thoughts in the comments, but don't be an asshole about it, because there are so many people who are like, they will let me know their thoughts. Oh yeah, the Acolyte is garbage. Those are their thoughts. Yeah, that doesn't help anyone, let's be fair. And it just makes me think of the Yoda quote, you know.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
Hate is a path to the dark side. And while I love the dark side in terms of a fictional sense, like looking at Star Wars like, oh yeah, I'm Team Empire, I would never do that in my real life. I would never just hate so much on something, at least not anymore. Maybe in the past I would, but I've definitely changed my approach to that, to the point where I'm like, let's all be friends. Let's all be nice to each other. So that's what I just have to say about that. Well, let's now get into the comments on the video that I made a couple of weeks ago. I know that I'm quite late with this. I actually, in the meantime, got another reply saying like, wow, why is it taking so long? I don't do YouTube full time, you know. I do YouTube as a hobby because I like it sometimes. So I'm sorry that I'm late with this, but at least, you know, better late than never, I suppose. So I organized it by newest first. I'm starting at the bottom, so the oldest comment first. Really, bro, with your 48 views, is the simp worm dug in that deep? I honestly don't really know what the hell that means. I think it was a shot at the views that I had at the time. It's about 700 right now, so I've definitely gotten a bit more by now. But anyway, no one hates the show because it is woke. They hate it because it is an abomination to storytelling in the name of woke ideology. There is a difference. Oh. Abomination to storytelling. I honestly don't understand this one. Like, I do have the feeling that a lot of people judge this show beforehand because of some woke stuff going on, because there are some people who don't like woke stuff. And I do think there is quite a group of people who already decided to hate the show beforehand because of that. How much, I don't know, but they do exist, believe me. But storytelling, I mean, I don't think storytelling is necessarily that bad. It has a couple of issues, I will say that. One of the issues that I do feel the show has is that it waits a very long time with actually telling what really happened. For example, with episode 3, we saw Osha's perspective of the incident that happened 16 years ago with the fire. In episode 7, they return to that moment, but then from the Jedi's perspective, and it's a very different story. And a lot of people, of course, base this show on the first 3 episodes, because by the time that this video went up, we had 4 episodes. So based on the first 4 episodes, you're like, wait a moment, this doesn't add up. But then if you watch episode 7 later, all of a sudden it makes more sense. However, some people are not patient enough to wait for episode 7. By episode 3, they didn't like it and they didn't want to continue. So I do understand that. It's just, I don't think it's necessarily that bad in terms of storytelling if you compare it to maybe some other shows. Like, I think the Book of Boba Fett is pretty bad. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi was not that great in terms of storytelling. Might just be me. I very much just get the feeling that, you know, the Acolyte is being targeted for specific reasons, which, again, I don't really understand. This is why your video concentrates on what you call toxic fans hating cause they are bigots. Well, yeah. At least some are. Not what you like or think is good about the show because you can't, because the show is trash. To be fair, I've done several reviews. Like, I've reviewed every single episode, and I essentially talked through the entire episode in all my reviews, saying what I like. And also a couple of things where I dislike it. So, maybe you want to check out those reviews. I'm not going to go into it right now. Why is it trash, you might ask, since you can't figure it out, which is coming from someone who reviews stuff pretty sad. So, well, I can figure out what I don't like about the show, which is not a whole lot, let's be fair. I have a few complaints. And again, check out my reviews. Twins who keep the same hairdo for 16 years despite being separated so your plot can work. Dumb. To be fair, first of all, the plot doesn't work because they have the same hairdo. They just look alike. Even if they had a different hairdo, I have the feeling that they just kept the same hairdo because they are reminded of their sister that they love from childhood. So they probably want to honor their sister because both of them were under the impression that their sister was gone. When they then finally see each other, it's like, oh, hey, you actually didn't change your hair. At least that's how I see that. Jedi who constantly do dumb shit like getting killed in accident by a letter opener. Oh, it was a small knife. I will say it was a small knife, not particularly big, but then again, I don't know when the last time was that you tried to put a knife into your chest that may be close to your heart. I don't think your heart is going to like that all that much if you try to do that. Then again, I'm not an expert on these things, Or commit suicide for the guilt of the nothing they have done. I think that is in relation to Torben, who takes the poison. Episode 7 explains what he did, but I suppose you didn't get to that part yet at this point, so I suppose your ignorance is forgiven. Get killed off screen by a mystery assassin. By the way, it's the guy wandering around with May. Well, yeah, of course, it's him. Don't really know what the complaint is here. Also, May is evil. She tried to murder. It's a new word. Her sister now for no reason. She decides she is just gonna be good. No story arc. This was after episode 4, by the way, where May made a very weird switch. I was very much under the impression when she said that she was just lying, and it turns out the episode after that she kind of was. She just says whatever she needs to say to make sure that she can get out of the situation and survive, because that's what she's probably been doing for the past 16 years. Like, I understand that May has trust issues, When she was 8 years old, she saw her mom get killed by a Jedi, and then for 16 years she was on her own, and she was with this guy. Actually, I don't know how long she was with this guy, but it seems like they've been together for a while. So there might be some trust issues, AV decided for reasons now she has already technically murdered 2 people. I don't fully understand the remainder of that sentence. Dialogue is all retarded. All. No examples. If you had given examples, then maybe I could understand it a little bit more. But I've seen people complain about the dialogue. Not a lot of people are really able to give me specific explanations. And also, my rebuttal is kind of the same as, by the way, check out Honest Trailers. Honest Trailers from Screen Junkies. They made an honest trailer about the Acolyte, where they essentially say, like, oh, you're complaining about bad dialogue. Bad dialogue has been a thing in Star Wars for a very long time. I don't watch Star Wars for the dialogue, honestly. I mean, some of it is very cringe, but I don't think that the dialogue in Star Wars, most Star Wars, has been really outstanding. The exception kind of is Andor, actually. Story is dumb about boring characters no one should care about because they are badly characterized. They just do what the dumb script says. And all this for $180 million. I have seen this complaint a lot in terms of the budget. I was not aware that it was made for $180 million. Seems quite excessive. I will admit that I didn't really see that amount of budget back into the show. If you told me it was made for half that, I would totally believe you. But it's not make or break for me. I have the feeling that, you know, with some of the people who really wanted to hate it, they just try to draw everything together to make sure, oh, there are so many reasons to hate the show, which I suppose if you really want to look for it, okay, sure. I will say I've also seen it about the fact that people didn't connect with characters. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of all the characters in this show. There are a couple of characters that I was like, when they died, like, okay, they died. Other characters, though, I was kind of shocked by, like, oh, shit, they died. In the end, I do think there's enough intrigue going on with these characters, specifically with Osha and Kamir after episode 8. But I can understand that, especially based on the first 3 or 4 episodes, you might not be the most connected to the characters. So, okay, fair criticism. If you have that, okay. I disagree with it, you know. But carry on saying it's because of toxic man babies and not actually analyzing any of the genuine, not bigoted, not racist opinions they put forward. Well, here I am, understanding what you're saying, simply disagreeing with some of it, but that's me. Anyway, this is exactly why I'm doing this comeback, essentially, because I wanted to really get into why people dislike it. All right, so the next one. Disney has popularized the practice of slandering the fan base with every label in the book and encouraging censorship on platforms when people share honest, logical criticisms. Honestly, I don't know that Disney does that. I've been called a shill, by the way, like a Disney shill, or that I work for Disney. I do not. There are times that I wish I did, mind you, because, you know, they have a lot of money and I don't. I simply work at a production company, and I'm perfectly happy with that. And I do YouTube as a hobby. But I honestly, I don't know anything about this, and this is honestly, I do live in a little bit of a bubble here in the Netherlands instead of the USA. I do feel like in the USA there are other things playing that a lot of people follow that I just don't, because I live on a different continent. And so there's that. The marketing team's creators are hell-bent on making an enemy out of and mocking an already frustrated crowd with media tours. So are there media tours that piss people off? Your corporate overlords. Oh yeah, my corporate overlords. I bow down to Disney. Sorry. I want you to feel that this is just a shameless crowd reaction and you should be chastising. Look, I don't want to chastise anyone. I don't want to go after anyone. That's my entire point of this video. I don't want to go after anyone, and I don't want others to go after people. Like, can we just get along, for fuck's sake? That's what I'm trying to do, you know. All right. This is an extensive comment. I think you make a good point, but when we have art that is also supposed to be entertainment and be profitable, people feel like their feedback is relevant because the fate of the franchise is at stake. Yeah. And look, I do want to make it very clear. Any and all Star Wars, whether it's movie, TV, books, comics, games, any and all of that is a form of art. And any and all art can be criticized and is subjective at the end of the day. So that means that if you have something in terms of Star Wars that you dislike, you're allowed to criticize it, allowed to, let your criticisms be known. Of course, I do that all the time as well. I just want to make it clear that there's a massive difference in attacking people for having an opinion or for doing something versus criticizing something in a normal way. For example, the Halo franchise, of which I may have played one game at some point at a friend's house when I was younger. So I don't know much about the Halo franchise, but I'm just going to listen to what they have to say. Whom fans have been very critical, but then the fans' feedback went unheard, and so the franchise is on its last leg. And that obviously riles up the fans who knew it could have been averted by simply hearing out their criticisms and acting on them. To fans, Star Wars keeps doubling down on what they're critical of. I'm not entirely sure if I agree with that. Similar to Halo and its downfall. So that very much gets under the skin of fans who'd like the franchise to be more entertaining, thus more profitable, thus better for everyone involved, fans and producers. Consumers are going to boycott when they've had enough, and the nasty rhetoric is the indication that it can happen. Pretty typical consumer versus corporation activity. Okay. I do think in terms of the amount of Star Wars projects that we've gotten over the past couple of years, because we have the sequel trilogy, and in between the sequel trilogy, we got two standalone movies as well. And the moment that all was done, we started to get TV shows pretty much every year, maybe even twice a year. So they have been putting out a lot of content towards us, and not everything was as well received. However, if you do look at the profit, like regardless of what you may think of the sequel trilogy, it made a massive profit. The Force Awakens made over $2 billion. The Last Jedi $1.3 billion, and Rise of Skywalker $1 billion. Sure, it's declining every movie, but it's still making a lot of money. The only one that was a bit of a miss was Solo, and that was probably because it was very poorly positioned in terms of when it released. But that's a discussion for another day. But if you do then look at the TV shows that have been coming out ever since, The Mandalorian is a big success. Andor is a big success. Ahsoka was, I think, a success. At least I liked it a lot, and I think a lot of people as well. A lot of people love the end of the Clone Wars Season 7, especially the final arc. I think the final arc is amazing. I think a lot of people like the Bad Batch. Sure, not everyone was a fan of Obi-Wan or the Book of Boba Fett, and in this case, of course, the Acolyte. But I do think there are plenty of other projects. It's just we are getting a lot of it. And it's kind of like throwing tomatoes at the wall. Some stick, some won't. And it also very much depends on who you are. If you're a new fan, an old fan, a fan of the prequels, a fan of the originals, several things might work for you in several ways. So it's kind of difficult. I do think that the franchise is still holding on really well because it's still making like a lot of numbers. When a movie comes out, it's making a lot of money. When a TV show comes out, it's getting a lot of views on Disney Plus. Of course, the Acolyte is a bit of an issue right now, but I do think that Star Wars will continue regardless. And, I'm still very much looking forward to Andor Season 2, like a lot of other people, I think, because can we just agree that Andor was amazing? Anyway, let's continue with comment. For example, I slept on all these Star Wars shows because of my disappointment with the last trilogy. I didn't go after anyone, but clearly the damage was done. Similarly, when a die-hard Halo fan skips the new game, what does that mean for the franchise? Nothing good. When you lose some of the biggest fans, you are obviously doing something wrong. Yes. Then again, I would consider myself one of the biggest fans, and I still really like the franchise, but that's me, I suppose. For example, no one I know of claimed Samuel L. Jackson's Mace Windu character was a DEI hire. I don't know what that means, I gotta be honest. But that's because he's one of the best actors of all time. That's subjective. He is in a lot of stuff. Doesn't mean he's necessarily the best one. I'm sure no one would be critical if they had casted Lawrence Fishburne or Rosario Dawson. Oh. Odd. Not sure what you mean by that. But they're casting people nobody knows. if you're talking about the casting of the Acolyte, I don't really think that it's people nobody knows. There are actually plenty of people that people do know. So although that criticism is likely misplaced, there's something happening that is sparking criticism. It's just the critics fail to be articulate. I'm not entirely sure about that. But anyway, let's look at the cast list of the Acolyte for just a moment, because Master Soul is played by Lee Jung-jae, who was the main character in Squid Game. Now, I haven't seen Squid Game, but I've heard that it's huge, and a lot of people watched it. So everyone who watched Squid Game know him. Then you have Amanda Stenberg. Now, she has not been in a whole lot of things, but I do think pretty much everyone has seen The Hunger Games by now, the very first one. You know her as Rue. Manny Jacinto, yeah, I don't really know him from anything. I've heard he's in The Good Place, which is a popular TV show, but I don't know it really. So there's that. Daphne Keane, I think everyone knows her as X-23. Jonas Suotomo, who plays Kelnaka, is, of course, Chewbacca since The Force Awakens. He was the stand-in for Peter Mayhew at first. Like, they essentially both did the role of Chewbacca, and then when Peter Mayhew died, Suotomo took over for him. Then you have Dean Charles Chapman, who I know from Game of Thrones. He's Tommen Baratheon, and I do think a lot of people have seen Game of Thrones, so you should know him from that. Or he's in 1917, which I thought was a pretty good movie. Probably the biggest name of all of these is Carrie-Anne Moss, like Trinity from The Matrix. Come on, I think everyone knows her. So, like, sure, not everyone is known, but we have some names in there. There are definitely some names in there. On the other hand, though, if you look at the history of Star Wars in terms of casting, the original trilogy casted people who at the time were not really known. No one knew who Carrie Fisher was. No one knew who Mark Hamill was. Harrison Ford had not been in a lot of things just yet. All those careers would get bigger later, but essentially in terms of the young cast, not a lot of people knew them. Sure, the older cast was a bit more known, like Peter Cushing and Alec Guinness, those kind of people. They were a bit more known, but in general, the original Star Wars, when it released back in the day, the cast was not really known. If you then take a leap towards the future and we look at The Force Awakens, Daisy Ridley was not in anything when she was cast for The Force Awakens. Adam Driver had not been in a lot of things just yet, mostly side stuff. He was not very known either. John Boyega, also not really. Oscar Isaac, a bit more, but also not as much as he is now, because essentially after Star Wars, Oscar Isaac did a whole lot more. So, like, it's not really a fair criticism to say that the show sucks because the cast is not well known. That doesn't matter. Star Wars has never had an issue with that in the past, I feel. That said, art is art, and most people find a lot of art unappealing. Well, this is what I was saying at the beginning of the comments. Like contemporary art or historical art. The nature of art is that it's subjective, yeah. But in creating art, not for the sake of art, but for profit, then the audience needs to be catered to, at least somewhat. It's a miscalculation to try to change the formula for the most profitable franchise in history. Okay, I'm not sure if Star Wars really is the most profitable franchise. Might be the MCU by this point. But yeah, when it comes to any and all art, I said this, it's subjective. Everyone is going to have their take. And if you want to be critical towards something because you don't like it, you can do that. But again, there's just a way of dealing with it, you know. But I fully agree that if you honestly believe that the franchise has really fallen off, gotten to a point where you don't like it anymore, and you feel like there are more people like that, and therefore the franchise is not doing as well as it used to, then I'm sorry you feel that way, and I'm sorry all those people feel that way. I don't feel like that just yet. I'm not sure if I will ever get there. I like a lot of stuff, you know. I really like the universe of Star Wars. And I really like what they've been doing. I will say, though, to you, if you haven't seen Andor, because it seems like you didn't watch any of the other shows, watch Andor. You might like it. It's not a good show, but at the same time, why do so many people care about this show? Well, that's my question. Why do people care so much? Like before the show even came out, why are people so up in arms about specifically this show? I think we've had other shows, other projects in the past couple of years that were definitely worse than The Acolyte, but didn't nearly get as much of an uproar as The Acolyte. So, yeah, that's just like, please thank you for agreeing with me on that part. I don't agree with it being a bad show, but that's an opinion. Oh, anyway, yeah. So this next one is the most liked comment on this entire thing, this entire video. What a disingenuous and poorly done video. Just again, I want to reiterate: if you're gonna, try to burn me, try to slander me or whatever, at least be grammatically correct. Get your spelling in order. Get it right. Other than that, if you think I'm not genuine, go fuck yourself. Star Wars is something that I'm really, really, really passionate about. And I do think that a lot of people think it's a poorly done video simply because they disagree with my take. My video, in the first place, is about the fact that let's try to get along. We can be critical all we want, but let's try to get along, okay? That's my point about this entire thing. Let's not try to hate on each other. So, yeah, this is a very enlightening comment with so much nuance and everything. Most fans don't care about demographics groups. They care that the show is strictly used as a medium for political intent. Everything from showrunner, writers, actors, directors, etc. is a failure because Disney is sacrificing meritocracy for their politics. Not entirely sure what that word means, but I think I have an idea based on the context. But look, when it comes to any and all art in the history of art, let's be fair, I do think that creators, whenever they can get some kind of a message, whether it's political or whatever, in there, they will probably try to do that. George Lucas actually did a lot of that in the original trilogy and the prequels as well. I mean, heck, he kind of invented Star Wars politics, and I have the feeling that, with Star Wars politics, he was trying to convey a message as well. Maybe there are some replies to this. I'm not sure, or maybe it was another comment later on. You're aware that the prioritization of resources is a requirement, right? Having politics in the show is natural as art is inseparable from the artist. The point is that this show's sole purpose is to convey politics using a pre-existing IP as a vehicle to do so. I very much disagree. The show's sole purpose is not to convey politics. It can be one of the things that they want to convey with it, but I think first and foremost that the people making this show want to just make an entertaining, fun show. It's not true at all. Star Wars has always been political. There you go. There's even very on-the-nose political shows like The Boys that are just great. Oh yeah, The Boys is great. Really enjoy The Boys. The problem with The Acolyte is that it's made by people with no understanding of Star Wars that are making a poor product with just terrible writing and breaking lore for no reason. They have not broken a single piece of lore. I think that anything that they've broken might go against Legends, but it doesn't go against canon. Canon has actually not been affected as far as we've seen. Anyway, let's go to the next one. Okay, I did reply to this, but there's some stuff going on here. Ignoring the race is ambiguous. The show's writing is just horrendous. And then I ask why. I really want to know why people think that. And it's interesting that this person who commented this initially never replied to this comment. But anyway, so someone else did. Chars, is that characters? I think it's characters. Are half-baked. The writing is awful. Chars, I'm pretty sure it's characters, are saying what they are doing, and the people who made it had an agenda. They also hate the fans. You sound like a total show. Oh, hey, there you go. That's the show comment that I was talking about. So, siding with a vile billion-dollar company. I'm not siding with anyone. Honestly, I'm just expressing my opinion here. For the money that it costs, it looks, man. Well, I've said something about that, and there are insane amount of cringe. You like it, good for you, but the Val shilling is a joke. End of it all, the show is bad and will be remembered, if it is at all, for being awful. Oh, I can tell you, this show will be remembered all right because of the outrage online. And saying the critics try to be objective shows how utterly out of touch you are. Sure. I very much have the feeling that there are some people who are just very much against the system, against corporations, against critics, against everyone. They're like, I cannot trust anyone. I cannot trust the system. It's a very bleak outlook on life, I feel. I'd like to, trust people who are in charge of certain things that they're supposed to be in charge of. Might just be me. So, I already said earlier, I think Disney is doing an all right job with Star Wars. Not perfect by any stretch, but doing all right, and and they are successful. And most of the stuff that they produced has been good. That's me. If you don't like that take, you don't have to watch my videos, because I'm going to continue saying this for the end of time, I feel. And I've been saying this for years. I like what Disney has done ever since they took over with the franchise. I'm still liking it, and I probably will continue to like it. Most of it. Not everything, most of it. And I also want to say, I am not getting a whole lot of explanation as to why you think the writing is awful and the characters are half-baked and there's a lot of cringe. Honestly, I would like specific examples. Can you take a line out of the show and show, okay, this is a line that they say in the show, and present it to me as, okay, this is what's wrong with it. Can you dissect it? I would love to see some kind of a dissection. I know that's a lot of work. I'm putting a lot of work in this video as well. So I'd love to see a little bit of work from you in the comment section. It takes 5 minutes to type out a comment, honestly. Less than that. It takes me way longer to make this video, let's be fair. There's someone who has the feeling that someone has never watched the show. I very much get the feeling that, there are a lot of people who just go online without having watched the show. They just hop on the bandwagon and are like, oh yeah, this show sucks, never having seen any of it. And they are just copying and pasting what they have heard from people, which is weird, honestly. Why would you even do that? But some people seem to do that. All right, so then at the end of all of this, we have one more person. Where shall I start? So every valid reason, something that doesn't make sense, everything we find is nitpicking. Well, some of it is, but let's see what you have to say. A Jedi Master is killed, and they sent a Knight and Padawan after the suspect. So Indar is killed in the first episode, and they sent Jackie and Yord. I think they sent more than that. They sent Jackie Yord, but also an escort of guards, not just a Knight and a Padawan. Now, I don't know the workings of the Jedi Council, but I think this is not the weirdest thing to me. Might be just me. May wants to kill Jedi and her sister. Remember, she said that she was the way she was going to keep her there. I don't really understand that sentence. Up until a 2-minute walk in the woods, she just found out her sister was alive. Saw her sister shoot the stun gun at her. That's in episode 2, I believe. Is that in episode 2 or is that another episode? I'm honestly not entirely remembering it right now. But what I'm seeing is you're explaining the situation, and I'm not seeing any kind of complaint. Maybe it's me. The mother that created the twins was so very much against the Republic and the Jedi. I think she was saying how the Republic and the Jedi had put them on the planet. But that was because of the entire incident, like 100 years ago, which was a hyperspace crisis. Happens in the first book of the High Republic. It's a bit of it's a bit of a stretch to expect that people have read the books. Probably not. But yeah, there was an incident, and then the witches were driven to that planet, and she's going to let her daughter go. That is probably because, she has an open mind. She is like, okay, I can accept other things. I'm not this closed off. And I thought that was a decent contrast between that mother and the other one, because the other mother, she was very much against Osha going with the Jedi. She didn't want her to go. But Mother Anastasia was like, I can accept this. This is okay because this is what Osha wants. Like, she clearly also listened to her daughter, who was saying like, oh yeah, I want to go. So she's like, okay, if you want to go, that's what you need to do. That was episode 3, by the way, because you're saying that it's just episode 1. No, it's episode 1, 2, and 3 in order, by the way. Go watch John Campia. John Campia. Oh, fuck no. I've listened to that guy a lot in the past. No, never again, please. Thor Skywalker, well, if you're recommending John Campia, then please no. You are just letting the YouTube algorithm tell you that people don't like it are mostly the bigots. Well, those are the worst ones, at least. It's not mostly them, but they're the worst ones. They are very vocal. It's annoying. So, like, the thing is, they do exist, and they're very loud, which is the annoying thing. So, then the next one. Okay. So, yeah, this is a lengthy one, and luckily this person also came back to it. If you really think there's no legitimate criticisms of the Acolyte and that the entire backlash can be explained by racism, then you desperately need to get yourself out of the fanboy bubble that you find yourself in. Well, I do live in a little bit of a bubble, and I very much enjoy it. Thank you very much. But, I've opened myself up here to at least be a little bit more open towards the criticisms. So then, yeah, I asked what the criticisms are, and luckily they replied. So thank you for that. So here we go. This can't be the first time you've heard this, but the writing is really horrible. The dialogue really flat. The story is loaded with almost too many plot contrivances and character inconsistencies. Things happen in the plot, but none of it has any substance or real emotional weight. Okay. I disagree. That's all I'll say. Based on what I've seen in the show, I disagree with that. There's not much else I can say because that's a criticism you have and I don't. That's just that. Additionally, none of the characters have any personality to speak of. I watched the first 3 episodes and I struggled to describe actual personality of any of the characters. I already said this before. If you have an issue with the characterization of some of the characters and you didn't really feel a connection, I can kind of understand that. I was just along for the ride, I turn it on and I'm just along for the ride and I just want to enjoy it because it's Star Wars. It's a new Star Wars thing. Anyway, they feel like they're merely widgets that are there to facilitate the plot moving forward as opposed to real people with real motivations. I disagree with that, but okay. There's also a very odd immersion-breaking lack of dramatic tension. Moments that feel like they're trying to be tense and dramatic just don't. And I think that's related to the other issues I've been talking about, as well as some things that break our sense of stakes as an audience, such as Osha surviving a crash from orbit basically without a scratch. That's true. She does crash into a planet and she has nothing, which, to be fair, that has happened more often in Star Wars. And every time it does, I'm like, yeah, whatever, fine. I just brush it off I suspend my disbelief. Or Torben just sort of chugging the poison in episode 2. Well, watch episode 7, it explains it. I understand the latter was likely meant to get a spark of curiosity, ooh, what dark secret would make him want to do that? Well, that's how I felt after that. But in reality, I can't bring myself to care. Okay, well, that's you. I was like, what did he do? And in episode 7, we find out and it actually makes sense to me. Then on top of it all, there are so many corny line deliveries in the show. Oh, just like every other Star Wars project, with the exception of Andor. The acting is far from being the worst that I've ever seen. Certainly not great. It's also nothing new. The amount of times that I winced from the cheese was just unacceptable. By the way, I really watched this show for the lightsaber fights. At least that was good. And I've not seen a single complaint about the lightsaber fights, because that's good at least. I will say that for now. As a result of all that, the show just feels so flat and boring. I can't get invested with the characters with no personality, and I can't care about the story with so many artificialities and inconsistencies. I'm saying all of this as a longtime Star Wars fan who wants to see the series succeed. Unfortunately, the majority of films and shows that we've gotten in the Disney era has been profoundly disappointing. I disagree. I think it's more than okay to demand better from the people who found themselves in charge of something that I still hold a lot of love for. I also think it's foolish to continually buy into the excuse that it's become so common when a piece of media like this fails. That being that criticism of the piece of media in question becomes primarily from a place of racism, sexism, etc. Well, as I said, there are definitely some people who have it. There are idiots out there for sure, but I don't think those idiots make up anything close to the majority of critical voices out there. No, but they're loud. Disney has been churning out content unworthy of the name of Star Wars for a long time. I very much disagree. The huge backlash that recent shows have gotten, I think, is indicative of the fact that fans have just gotten sick of that. By the way, this is the huge backlash. The Acolyte has gotten the huge backlash. All the other previous shows have not gotten this much of a backlash. And actually, I think Andor got a lot of love. Andor was one of the things that so many people were like, oh, this is legit good. This is amazing. This is what we want to see. Siding with a billion-dollar company that is racist as hell, checked the new leaks, and openly set out to shit on the fans. Okay, I'm not going to check the leaks because, again, I like to live in a certain bubble sometimes. But, yeah. I don't really have an issue with Disney owning the company, because the thing is, Disney is not in charge of what Star Wars is making. The people at Lucasfilm, like Dave Filoni and whoever else, they are in charge of what Star Wars is putting out. And actually, they put Dave Filoni in charge of Star Wars, which is something that a lot of people have been asking for a while. So this is actually the first show that has come out with Dave Filoni at the helm. Dave Filoni is one of the top credited people for making the show. He is very much directly involved with this. So believe me, there are so many people over at Lucasfilm that know how to Star Wars. They really do. And they're making this stuff. Anywho, actual criticisms. The main character's acting is terrible in both roles. So you're saying Amanda Stenberg does not do a good job portraying Osha and May. I disagree. They're twins, raised very differently. No, they're raised very togetherly for the first 8 years of their life. They should not be remotely the same in temperament. Oh, they are in some ways, but not in other ways. Good example would be J.K. Simmons in Counterpart. I haven't seen that movie. He plays the same person from a diverse timeline. He does an amazing job playing two completely different characters that are the same person. Also, the writing is terrible. Fire in Space. Yeah, I addressed that in the first video. Fire burning down a stone temple. Yeah, that happens. Yeah, that's interesting. And that's actually also after episode 7. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Fire in Space, on the other hand, you know what the thing is with Fire in Space? I already pointed it out in my first video. We've seen Fire in Space so many times in Star Wars, honestly. But in addition to that, sound in space also doesn't exist. There are a whole bunch of things that in space would not work. But in the past, George Lucas has said himself, if I want to make something look cool, I'm going to make something look cool or sound cool. However that works, even if it doesn't work according to science. If you want science fiction, which Star Wars is not because Star Wars is fantasy. If you want science fiction, what's Star Trek? Star Trek is scientifically accurate most of the time. But Star Wars isn't. Star Wars is pure fantasy. We have laser swords. We have, sound in space. We have fire in space. Like, if you if that's legitimately one of your criticisms, then maybe you should watch something else. A Jedi Master that ends himself because a little girl burns down a stone temple and he feels responsible. Well, yeah, there's a lot more to it. He is kind of the cause of the temple being burnt down. But watch episode 7, I suppose. Carrie Ann Moss dies from a small knife. I already said try a small knife. But when in a prior show, Kenobi, yeah. And Ahsoka, mind you. One character survives by being stabbed by a lightsaber. Yeah. This is an issue that I have with Kenobi and Ahsoka and any other Star Wars show where someone gets impaled by a lightsaber and they survive. I also was against the entire idea of Maul coming back after being sliced in half. On the other hand, though, the way they brought Maul back and made Maul a really interesting character, that was really cool. So I was like, kind of happy that they brought him back, but I'm still against the entire idea. A lightsaber should kill a person when you get stabbed by it. But whenever that happens in, something like an Ahsoka or Obi-Wan, I'm just like, no, fuck off. I hate it. I think that's really... I think it was bad writing in the first place when they stabbed the lightsaber through someone and that someone survived. That's bad writing. I'm perfectly okay with, a knife being close to your heart or maybe inside your heart that kills you. That, I believe that more than I believe a person surviving a lightsaber stab. So I have more of an issue with that in another show than this show, let's be fair. This show is garbage. Thank you for saying that yet again. I will add it to the 10 million others that I have on a pile somewhere. Anyway, the only bright actor is playing Jedi Soul, Lee Jung-jae. Well, at least you point out something positive. Thank you for that. He's believable. His acting is great, and I just found out he learned English. Yeah, he did. It's really good dedication. I really like him. There is actual criticism. Please, how you disagree with those points. Again, grammar. But, well, I just did. I just reacted to your comments. Oh, wait, there are replies, by the way. That's not really fair. Amanda Lies a fine actress. Oh, yeah, I think so, too. Let's not throw the baby out with bathwater. You would need to know what direction she was given in any scene to definitely claim that. Acting is often one of the hardest things to call out because it's a victim of generally a mediocre show. Interestingly, the one I think is acting badly is Jung-jae. Okay, so we got completely different opinions here, which is fascinating, honestly. But, if you're able to talk about it like this, then you have a conversation. That's fine. That's cool. Her point, haven't seen her other work. Direction she was given is possibly a reason. All right. But, that's that. So, actually, I got this reply today as far as recording it right now. I did watch the video in its entirety. In spaces too. Sure, whatever. You still haven't made a follow-up video. Well, I'm doing it now. It took me a while. Apologies. Like you said, yeah. Please, Disney, don't renew this. Oh, they're going to make a season 2. You really came back with comment weeks, almost a month after I posted it. Well, I wanted to wait for the show to be over, first of all, and then last week was difficult for me, so it took a while. I've had stuff to do. Thin skin. I'm replying to it now. And 12 days in your most recent video, you said in the first minute and 30 seconds, don't comment on how bad the show is because you're not changing your mind. Well, yeah, you're not changing my mind if you're going to tell me that the show is garbage 10 million times, That's fine. If you find joy in this, great, truly. Dude, come on. Well, I do find joy in this. I did like the show. And look, the thing is, there's a difference, by the way. What I said at the beginning of most of my videos is if you're able to explain properly why you dislike the show, then I'll read your comment and I'll take that to heart. And I might disagree with you, but I will at least read it and understand what you have to say. The issue just is that out of the comments that I've been getting from most of my videos, I think 75% has been people saying it's trash, it's garbage, with no other sentences following it explaining why it is. It's just so that's why, at the beginning of most of my videos, I've been saying, like, just stop with that. It's pointless. And yeah, you're not changing my mind. Like, you can criticize the show all you want, and I will read your comment and I will take that to heart. But you will definitely not change my mind, because I very much get the feeling that we're just watching a different show at this point. I'm watching a show I like, and you guys are not, and that's just how it is. Anyway, next one. Dude, you are 100% right, but it's a hopeless cause. Well, thank you for agreeing with me. Nerd outrage is now a mega industry. Yeah, that might be it, right? People like nerdrotic stoke rage in order to profit off of it. It's no longer, well, this probably isn't for me. Instead, this is a personal attack on me. We are talking about a series that survived the prequels. It's going to survive the Acolyte, but there's just no reasoning with these people. They watch videos specifically for the nitpicks, like fire in space. Oh my god, they used warp drive as a weapon. How did bombs drop in space? Warp drive, that's Star Trek, by the way. I think you're referring to the Lightspeed Holdo maneuver in The Last Jedi. They get some kind of serotonin boost hearing a thing they dislike get trashed. It's really that simple. Well, I do very much believe that, some people really love to see drama online. They love to watch people get mad, get passionate, but then in a negative way towards something. Like, not like, oh my god, I fucking love this thing. Instead, it's like, oh my god, I hate this. This attacks me personally, that kind of stuff. And yeah, it does seem like people really latch on to that. But in my personal opinion, that's not a good thing for you. Like, try to remain optimistic, I'd say. At least that's how I try to live my life most of the time. And it's worked out pretty well. I'm not very miserable at all. And I'm very much able to react to all of this despite, a lot of negativity. And I was able to continue with my reviews despite a lot of negativity, because I'm just like, let it go. And yes, this show will not tank Disney and Star Wars and whatever they're doing, because they're doing well. And sure, it is maybe losing some of the very old fans who've been fans for a very long time. But what it is gaining is a very big fan base of new fans. Ever since The Force Awakens came out, the fan base of Star Wars has increased exponentially. Like, if you just look at the attendance of Star Wars Celebration last year, it was humongous, and it's going to continue to grow every single year, honestly. So despite the fact, it's losing some old fans, it's creating a whole lot of new fans. And there are still old fans like myself who are still fans. It's going to survive very well, Star Wars. And I feel bad for the people who think that Star Wars is not as good as it used to be, because you have very much created a version of Star Wars in your mind that is different from what they're doing now, which I think is the same. Like, I think Star Wars right now is pretty much the same as it was originally. It's just evolved to modern times in a certain way. But other than that, I watch a show like The Acolyte, and I'm like, yeah, I can accept this as Star Wars. This is fine. I have no issues with it. Other people seem to be very much up in arms, I suppose. Thank you. Since I clicked on this or that Acolyte-related video, my YouTube feed has become a cesspool of hatred. I don't think the show is great, not by a long shot, but also I think this outrage is being fueled by bigots and grifters who are only about getting more engagement. Well, yeah, and as I said, like, a lot of these bigots, a lot of these stupid people, they are very loud. And because of the fact that they are very loud, that just makes sure that everyone else is drawn into that as well, regardless of how they really feel. I think, at least, to a certain degree. And like, there are a lot of people who, like, they want to look for negative things about the show so that they can then take that as an opinion and use it themselves, instead of, making their own opinion because they just want to go with what's popular. Because apparently it's popular to hate on the Acolyte. And that's why I'm here speaking out against that, because like I like this show and I want to see if there are more people who like this show. And I also want to see if there are people who may not like the show, but at least can understand my point of view. You know, like we can all disagree on whatever the hell is coming out, but we can talk about it. Like, let's have a conversation instead of trying to attack people. That's my entire point of this video. Yet again, I will continue to repeat that until it's clear to people. That's what I'm trying to do with this video. And I was also trying to do that with the other video. The other not so good shows, in my honest opinion, in Star Wars were criticized, yes, but not to this length. Yeah, indeed. So I'll subscribe. Let's build havens of non-toxicity around this thing we love. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, this is the most elaborate, inspired, interesting comment of the entire video. Show's trash. So then I say, why? Never responded to that. This was a month ago, mind you. Like, I know I'm late with this, but I'm at least responding right now. This person never came back. Anyway, actually, most of the derogatory comments I've seen online have been targeting people who dislike the show, not those who like it. Okay, then I get the feeling that you and I are on very opposite ends of the internet. The fan base is being attacked by the creators, critics, and actors for not liking the subpar show, and they're being labeled as racist or bigots for even hinting at any criticism towards a diverse character. We can't have reasonable discussions about Star Wars if everyone is spending all their time labeling one another with such vitriol. I think you're way off here. Well, I think you're way off, but that might just be me. As far as I've seen it, you know, haters have been coming after people who do like the show, and not vice versa. And I will also say that if there are people who like the show and they're going after the haters and like being mean towards them, that's also not okay. Of course, that's not. The writing in Star Wars has always been bad. Well, yeah, kind of. We've made fun of these bad lines for almost 50 years now. Oh, yeah, like it's nothing new. As I said, like the one kind of exception is Andor and The Empire Strikes Back, I suppose. Empire Strikes Back is really well written as well. But those are like the one exceptions because, let's be fair, the original Star Wars, as iconic and as awesome as it is and as much as I enjoy it, like...
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Is that like one of the most whiny lines ever in the history of anything? No, it probably isn't, but you know, it's not great or anything. And also all the things that they say during the Death Star attack, like,
look at the size of that thing.
Cover me, Porkins.
I'm right with you, Red.
It's not particularly refined, you know. Star Wars has never been that refined. As I said, there are very few exceptions here and there, Empire Strikes Back and Andor. Other than that, like, I watch it because pew pew, you know. So you are simping for a multi-billionaire company that shits on Star Wars and simply using the franchise to push their bullshit agendas. I suppose that's your opinion. Are we really the racists? Some people are. I've already said this. I'm sure John Boyega has more to say. Grammar people, about your glorified holy company. Remember the Chinese posters? I again have the feeling that I'm missing something. John Boyega, Chinese. Did they cut him out of a poster? By the way, I have the feeling that that decision was made by the Chinese cinema rather than Disney doing that, because Disney released a poster and then in China they decided to change that. I don't think that is Disney doing that. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how that goes. Anyway, then I have two comments from the same person. Make it simple for you. There's a lovely hamburger. Yeah, okay, I know this analogy. Like, you always go to eat a hamburger and it's always good, but then the owners change and then it's not as good anymore. Well, my personal opinion, the hamburgers have only gotten better. But that's just me, It is just a very badly written show. Why? So bad that though it has all the things Star Wars should have, it isn't worth the name Star Wars. Why? And then we have Disney, who did go full attack on its old fans before the show came out. I don't know about that. Is it 14%? Are you talking about Rotten Tomatoes? By the way, 14% audience score. I can check this. Rotten Tomatoes, Acolyte. And we do have to remember that most of the score is 17%. Most of the score is made of people who probably created a whole bunch of fake accounts just to vote like a low grade on it. That's why I want to side a little bit with the critics more, because I agree with the critics more in this regard. Sue me for that. Well, I'm sure it's better than the holiday special, but it isn't good. It just isn't good. Why? And it isn't made with love either. This product is not worth the name Star Wars. Yeah, you said that already. Why? If it wasn't given the IP Star Wars but anything else, it would suck. The writing sucks. Why? Like, explain yourself. Like, you're repeating the same things over and over again, but you're not actually explaining as to why. Disney daring to sell this to fans as Star Wars is a huge issue. They should have canceled it. Well, they didn't, and simply because it's getting so much engagement, I very much get the feeling it's going to get a season 2. Anyway, next one. Hey, not really a Star Wars fan or anything, but I watched the 4 episodes so far. I did not like it. I had high expectations because it was Star Wars. I have the feeling that those first 2 sentences are a little bit contradictory. Like, you're not a Star Wars fan or anything, but you had high expectations because it was Star Wars. It's odd. Here are my complaints. The Jedi are completely incompetent. Sure. I don't think so, but sure. Too much Go atmosphere with those witches. Pretty much all of episode 3 felt cringy, felt like they were just shoehorned in there. I disagree. You said that already. The chant. The chant is what you said with the second one about the witches, about episode 3. That is part of that. So, and I will say this about the chant, because when I first saw that, I was also like, that's a choice. Was not a particular big fan of it. Didn't hate it that much, though. Didn't hate it like, oh my god, this is the worst thing that Star Wars has ever done, because, well, let's be fair, there has been...
I'm haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me.
I don't think it was really the worst thing ever in anything Star Wars, but I didn't much care for it. Like, I also didn't care enough for it to really latch onto it and be like, oh my god, this is the worst thing that Star Wars has ever done, like a lot of people are doing. Yes, you already said that. You already said that. Oh, and edit. The green bossy girl I hated was, of course, dating the creator. You mean the Vanessa Rowe? Green bossy. I suppose it's Vanessa. So the actress is dating Leslie Headland? Okay. This series broke my high regard for the Jedi, remove your S, in half. But you're not really a Star Wars fan or anything. So, that's fine. Fire in space is like sound in space. Exactly. We shouldn't hear or see. Yeah, no, there you go. As I said, George Lucas himself said that he doesn't care if it is against any kind of scientific laws or anything. He just wants to make it look cool and sound cool. And that's that. Terrible show nobody asked for. I always find this a very funny thing as a criticism when people say no one asked for it. No one asked for Andor either. I don't recall a single person asking for Andor. Yet, when it came out, everyone loved it. So, or back in 1977, when the original Star Wars came out, no one was asking for Star Wars simply because no one knew what it was. But it turned out to be pretty good, I think. That's why we're talking right now, today. So that's always an interesting criticism when you say no one asked for it. I mean, yeah, no one asked for a whole bunch of things, but we still got it, and a whole bunch of things are good. Simply because this is one thing that you don't like, that's not a criticism. Anyway, with characters no one knew or cared about, well, that was kind of the point. The point of the show was to introduce a lot of new characters. Apparently, not everyone liked the characters, but there's that. With little done to make them likable or relatable. Okay, that's your opinion. Terrible writing, stupid plot. Why? Anyway, if it wasn't for the diversity, a few people defending it wouldn't defend it. I disagree. If they're all straight white males, then the story is the story and the characters are the characters. It has nothing to do with diversity. At least I don't think so. And it's interesting that you say that the diversity is the reason that defend it, because I had the feeling that, it being woke and everything is the reason that people don't like it. So we're saying different things here. So it's weird. Just watched Monkey Man a couple of weeks ago. Well, I didn't. The whole subplot about trans people, and then the Indian trans woman showed up in dresses, kicked a bunch of people asses. Nobody complained. Everyone liked it. I wouldn't know. Race or sexuality doesn't matter. Okay. It shouldn't matter. Unfortunately, a lot of people still, put labels on it. I don't want to. I would love for everyone to be accepted as they are, regardless of what gender, what race, or whatever you are. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who still have an issue with that for whatever kind of reason. Just write a good story with good characters. If your only excuse to get me to like or relate a character is because of the color of their skin, it's not going to cut it. No, that's true. The comments are literally proving his point. Comments. Attacking someone for liking a show is disgusting and are the reason the fandom has become so toxic. Yep. No one hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans. Yeah, and that point is simply because, you have loved Star Wars your entire life, and then something comes along and you don't like it, and that's why, you're really gonna hate it because you feel very strongly towards the franchise. You want it to be good, and it's not, so that's why you really hate it. So there's that. It's honestly a bit annoying sometimes. Anyway, the last one, finally there. So a long-ass segment. You're so vague because you can't even cite one thing anyone has even liked about this corporate slop. I didn't reply to this, but I will say this. In terms of what I liked, well, I wanted to see Jedi with lightsabers fight against, whoever. In this case, at some point, they fight Khmer. He uses cortosis. He uses a lot of really awesome lightsaber techniques, which I've never seen before in Star Wars. Thought it was really cool, some of the fights. So just, the fight choreography, the lightsaber porn that we got, because I was very much expecting that from this show, and I got it. I was very happy with what I got after 8 episodes, I got to be honest. So that was a really good thing. I really like the murder mystery aspect. Like from the very beginning of the show, we see Jedi being killed, and I'm like, why the hell is all of this happening? And you need to wait for it. On the other hand, that is an issue that people have had, that they need to wait very long to finally get an answer. And people thought that we got the answers in episode 3, but then in episode 7, they come back to the same storyline, so you need to wait until episode 7. And if it's releasing on a week-by-week basis, then you need to wait very long, and some people don't want to wait that long. I understand that, but I was actually intrigued every single time. I thought at the end of every episode, I had more questions than answers. I had so many questions every time that I'm like, okay, we're probably going to see this in the next episode next week, so I'll just wait for it next week. And every single time next week, it answered a couple of things, but it, again, rose questions that kept me invested. I was on board for that. Very much when it comes to most of the Star Wars things that I watch, I will simply turn it on and not have any preconceived notions towards it. Just I will watch it and judge it based on what I'm seeing. I'm along for the ride, you know. Like I want to, like I get on a roller coaster and I just go for the entire ride. And at the end of the ride, I will give my judgment. And maybe at the end, I'm like, that was not that good. Or maybe I'm like, oh, I actually like that. Or maybe I'm like, oh my God, I love this. Andor. So in that regard, I feel like I very much just got what I wanted from this show. A lot of people had different expectations, did not get what they want from this show, and therefore had criticisms. So I'm seeing your guys' criticisms. I understand some of them, not all of them, and I probably will never understand all of them because there are just some criticisms that I, on basic principle, disagree with, or for whatever reason, I will just disagree with that. That's just how I am, because I like the show. Simple as that. And maybe it's a better idea to binge all of the Acolyte. Like, you know, start with episode 1 and binge all of it, and by the end of the 8 episodes, you actually give a judgment. Because I do feel if you quit after 3 episodes, I understand why you did, but you might want to go through the entire season to see the full picture. If at the end of season 1 you're still not convinced, well, there's that. But I do think it was worth it. I liked it enough. That's me. That's my opinion. You don't have to agree with that, of course. You can disagree all you want. Just my main thing, the one thing that I've been trying to say this entire video, regardless of what you think of anything in terms of Star Wars or whatever, like movies, art, anything, whatever, it's all subjective, you know. If you want to criticize it, go right ahead. But there is a way to do that. Death threats are not the way to do it. It's mean, it's rude. Attacking a person is not okay, regardless of what the hell they have as an opinion on something. If they like something and they're like, oh, I really love this, and you don't, then it's absolutely no good reason to attack that person for it. So what I just want to do, you know, is with this video, I'm just asking people, can we all please get along and not murder each other for having another opinion? Please. Like every single time that I see people like that, I'm just yet again reminded of the meme. I think we all know the meme where, you know, people are just trying to enjoy something and there's one pissant who's like, stop enjoying it. Why do you do that? What do you hope to accomplish with it? Like, do you really think that you screaming, it's trash, it sucks, stop watching it, is going to make me not like something? Because if that really is your goal, you're an asshole. That's not okay. I do want to thank everyone who has commented over the past couple of months and has been positive, or at least has gotten to the point where, you know, they might disagree with me on something, but they can at least see my point of view, and they're like, okay, but let's not be dicks to one another. Let's, you know, disagree respectfully. Those people have existed, and I'm very glad that you do, because I honestly sometimes feel like they don't exist anymore, but they do. So thank you to those people who were positive, who were nice about it, even if you dislike the show. Even if you, you know, completely disagree with whatever I had to say. As long as you were nice, thank you for that. Because that is what I want to do with my Star Wars channel. Like, I love Star Wars. I love talking about it. I can be critical at times as well. I have plenty of things that I don't like about Star Wars, and I will probably talk about it in the future at some point. But whenever it comes to these type of things, I always feel like we have a way of talking with one another about it and, you know, to have a conversation. So if you want to see more of that, please subscribe to my channel, where I try to talk about Star Wars in a positive, non-toxic way as much as I can. I'm also just a person. I'm not perfect, but I try to do my best here. And that's why I've been doing this video for a very long time now. So thank you for the people who are positive. You're great. And if you subscribe to my channel for that reason, then thank you. Anyway, in a couple of weeks, I have something different planned for my channel. It's close to Star Wars. It's not entirely Star Wars because I want to do a watch-along for a movie like I've been doing over on the And I Quote YouTube channel. But simply because the host over there, Ryan, doesn't really like the movie, I'm going to do it here. It's Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm going to do a watch-along with people that I know from that channel. So essentially, if you have seen me on the watch-alongs over on And I Quote, and you've seen some of the people there, well, you know who they're going to be. They're going to be on the Guardians of the Galaxy watch-along. I will do that Sunday, August 18th at 9 p.m. Central European Time, which is 3 p.m. Eastern, which is noon Pacific Time. If you have time to tune in, we're going to watch the movie, and if you want to watch it along with us and hear our thoughts, please tune in. It's going to be a lot of fun because, honestly, I adore Guardians of the Galaxy. It's one of my favorite movies, which I kind of feel like it has to be because it's kind of just Star Wars in the MCU, you know? Make sure to stay updated with me and everything that I do on social media. And until my next video, may the Force be with you.